Um, Hi, everyone on Facebook and here with us on Zoom. We are recording this, so I'm hoping that people who didn't have the chance to come today can watch this later, because we've been looking forward to get this these updates about what happened in Galgal. So I'm Chen, I'm the manager of communications here at LM in the United States. Abigail, or Abigail, she said I can go with Abigail today. She's a staff member at our shelter for young women at risk in Jerusalem called Galgal, or the Friendship House, the official English name. And so let's start with this. Hi, first of all, thank you for joining us.
Sure, thank you for having me.
Of course, what time is it back home? 7:05 p.m. So it's evening, so extra thank you for joining us. Let's start with the basics for those who don't know so much about Galgal, and then we'll get to talk a little bit more about the fire. Can you tell us a little bit about Galgal? What is Galgal?
So Galgal is an emergency shelter for young women aged 18 to 26, in which they can come and also get humanitarian aid, bed, food, shower, laundry, whatever they need, and also just have a safe space in the world, a place where they can know that no one is going to harm them, no one is going to take advantage of them, just relax and be themselves. So that's our main goal.
And if I remember correctly from when I visited about 3 years ago, girls can stay up to 6 months. What happens after? What happens during?
Well, the formality is actually 4 months, but in reality, they stay many times more. They can stay up to a few years. They just come and go. So they can come for short periods of time and then go back to the street, go back to other options that they have. But a lot of them do stay more than 4 months and up to a few years. But the limit is really the age, coming to 26, or other limitations that are more specific, like pregnancies or stuff like that we can't really have inside.
Could you tell me a little bit about how Galgal actively helps? I know, you just mentioned pregnancies. I know that more than once you would accompany a young woman to see the OBGYN, but we also know that you help them with if they have any sort of legal needs and stuff like that. So if you can tell us a little bit more about that aspect.
Yeah, so we help with everything that has to do with their rights. And a lot of the times, even the most basic or tasks that seem to us very easy in day-to-day life, for these young women, they lack the skills or the motivation or the self-esteem to do it, to ring the doctor, to schedule an appointment, or to check their bank account. So all the bureaucracy, medical situations, and the even more basic stuff like preparing food and basic hygiene and clothing, and also emotionally. We're not therapists, but one of our main goals is to manage to make connections and to build trust, because that's the basic problem. We can always find housing and we can always help with food and with clothes, but the fundamental issue is the trust issue for these girls that have been hurt so many times throughout their lives.
Yeah, the things that seem trivial for us, it's a whole survival battle for. I should say that if the audience want to submit questions, you can do that in the chat, and we'll be able, with the miracles of technology, I'll get them and I'll ask them. So if you have something throughout, ask, and then we'll get to it during and at the end. So Abigail, you said you're not therapists, but just to clarify, there are professionals on staff who have that. I don't want to confuse our audience, so.
No, absolutely. We're an emergency shelter. So we deal with the most, the emergency issues. And our goal is to help the girls get to a place where they can start to really rebuild their lives. But as it's like the first stop in the way. After the street, they come to us. We start to build the basics, and then our goal is to help them get to someplace else where they can be for a longer time period, and start the rehabilitation.
Okay, and so since we're talking about staff and professionals, can you tell us a little bit about how many volunteers do you have, and how the makeup of the staff, the background people come from, and stuff like that?
So we have our managers, which are social workers, and then we have the staff members like me, which are counselors. I don't know if you mentioned it, but we're open 24/7. So that means that there's a staff member 24/7 every minute of the day with the girls. We're about 15 in the staff, but we have many more volunteers, which come throughout the day and help. They make the shelter more like a home. They bring in like a motherly energy and prepare meals and sit with the girls, and something that's a bit less formal than a staff member, which is also responsible for the discipline and more of the heavy stuff. And we have, I think, around 40 volunteers, which have their regular shifts every week, and they're a huge part of our work.
That's wonderful. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the fire. And again, if anybody have more in-depth questions about Galgal and the work, Abigail here is happy to answer. When did the fire happen?
The fire happened in February 15th, which is the middle of
Valentine's Day. Yeah. Oof. Yeah.
The middle of the Jerusalem winter. So it happened on a rainy day. In the middle of a really standard, normal day in the shelter, I think there were about 12 girls there and 5 staff members, which was
when it happened.
Because usually the minimum is 1, but 5 is a bonus, and it really helped in that situation. It happened in the middle of the day, in the afternoon, and the electricity went down, which is something that we're used to because it rains and it was an old building, so it happens a lot during the winter. But once they couldn't bring it back up, they started realizing that something's strange. And within a few seconds, up to a few minutes, it started filling up. The whole place filled up with smoke. And they realized that they had to get everyone out. The girls were in their pajamas and flip-flops and no shoes and socks. And as I said, it was raining outside. And they all ran out, and they didn't realize that they weren't gonna come back in, that was a one-way ticket. And from that minute on, it was just survival mode, getting actual shelter from the rain and realizing where we're gonna stay for the next few hours and what the girls are gonna eat for dinner. It was one step at a time, rebuilding the day-to-day and rebuilding the life. And we're still in the middle of that, I have to say. It has been a few months, but the trauma is very present in the girls' lives and in our daily life in the shelter. Right now, we're in a temporary house that we managed to find, and we're looking forward to, in the summer, going into our new shelter that is being renovated right now. And I think it took us some time to realize that apart from the things that the girls lost, that I have to say, once we're talking about homeless young women, the things that they bring with them are the things that survived all the transitions of their lives. So it's the baby blanket or the teddy bear or the photos of the family that they have left. But it took us some time to realize that what was really lost was actually the sense of stability that we managed to build. And that's something that will take us much longer to recreate.
It's really hard. I have a lot more questions, but also just want to tell to our people in the audience, I'm hearing the chat is disabled, but I am seeing that people are submitting questions through the Q&A feature. I don't know what it looks like on your side, audience members, but if you have something that says like ask a question or something like that, it's probably this. Okay, so I'm going to go back and forth a little bit, so we're going to be non-chronological, but I do have a couple of questions coming from the audience. So we have one of the question is, how is the services LM provides are unique? And we're gonna, I mean, you can talk in general, but also specifically about the shelter, what makes it maybe different than other shelters. I know a little bit, but I'd rather you say it. So, and I'm sure you know way more, so yeah.
Okay, so the thing I think is the most unique about our approach is we have a very extreme non-judgmental approach, which means that we don't try to educate the young women to tell them what's right and wrong, what they should do with their lives. Our main goal is to help them re-achieve the control over their lives and make the decisions for themselves. And we never criticize those decisions, even if in our eyes they seem disruptive or harmful. We just want to be there where the girls are at. So if that means some of them use drugs and some of them use their body in order to survive, some of them self-harm or use criminal activities, our understanding is that all of these are mechanisms that they developed in order to survive. Once you have to live on the streets, that's just the natural thing that you develop. And we want to be with the girls where they're at. So we have no conditions. You can be with us even if you're in prostitution, even if you use drugs. We do have limitations, of course, inside the shelter in order to keep it, as I said, a safe place. But we accept them exactly as they are and in any condition. And I think that's the most unique thing about us.
Yeah, this is definitely a point that we bring out quite often. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so like I said, back and forth, back to the fire for a second. Do you guys know what caused it? Do you know exactly what happened?
Yeah, it actually started in a hospital that was right near us in the city center of Jerusalem. I don't know what it started. They say it has something to do with the gas explosion or something like that. But it came to us through the roof, which was right next to the hospital. The hospital itself also was harmed. But it just took, as I said, a few seconds until it entered our shelter, which is completely ruined.
Escalated very quickly.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that, you were saying that it was quite fortunate that there were 5 people there at the time in this specific situation. I'm assuming that traumas, as difficult as they are, they can also bond people. Do you feel like, you're supporting the girls, but to an extent, they were also supporting you guys, and there was like a share of,
Absolutely.
Experiences and...
Well, first of all, right after the fire, what was crazy was that the staff members and the girls found themselves in the same position. For the first time, it was an opportunity to feel for a second, and I'm not comparing the situations, but for a second, what it feels like to be on the street and to not know where you're going, to have no address, to have no one to call, just to having to think on your feet and make solutions for yourself. And I think that was a split second in which we could actually realize what it feels like to be homeless. But other than that, the whole period after the fire, I think really helped us realize that the shelter, it has to be a physical place and we have to have those 4 walls, but it's much more than that. Because what the girls really wanted was to stay close to each other, stay close to the staff. And we all felt it. We felt that we have to be together, no matter where it is. We had a few days in which we had to send the girls to different places because we had nowhere to put them. And that was the hardest for us, because we felt that only we know what it is to be in the shelter. Only we know what it is to have gone through the fire. And we have to have the closeness to get through it.
It's a little bit of something beautiful in the midst of all the I find it really interesting, because as you're talking about this, I think because of the nature of Ellen's work, and we work at the forefront of whatever it is, be it like what you just described, if you work at the shelter and there's a fire, or we attend the celebrations in Mount Meron, and all of a sudden there's some sort of a crisis, some sort of a tragedy, and we provide help immediately. So it really, I don't think people think about the fact that it also really heavily affects the staff, not just, of course, our beneficiaries come first and foremost, but we're all people. And when we're in these situations, it takes a toll. And I'm really glad that we got to talk to you about this a little bit. Let's see what else we have from the audience. There are a lot of questions, which makes me happy. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the needs, immediate and long term, but I guess the immediate needs is what's going on with Galgal now. Did you guys find a solution?
Yeah, so fortunately we did. Right now, as I said, we're in a temporary location, which is very lucky, but it's also problematic because the location isn't ideal. It's not in the city center like we're used to, which is very, very crucial for us, because the most important thing for Galgal is to be accessible for the girls and to be an integral part of the city and of the city life. And that's where all the action is. So we found a great place in the city center, and right now it's being renovated. And yeah, we're putting a lot of effort into that, into giving the girls the beautiful and welcoming home that they deserve. And that's our main goal. But I will say more than that, that this past period has been very, very rough. And a lot of the girls have stayed with us, but a lot of them, since the fire, haven't managed to come back. They came back to their former habits and their former solutions. And we don't know in which condition they're going to come back. I believe that it's going to take a while until we manage to bring them back to what we know, and to the healthier habits that we try to achieve with them. And I think we're going to need a place, but also a place, in our hearts, and a lot of energy, because we don't know who we're going to meet once we open back.
When are you opening again? Do you know?
It's supposed to be in the beginning of July.
Okay, so getting there. What can people do to help with this right now, or what is the kind of help that Galgal is usually looking for?
Well, right now the main help that we need is to rebuild. We need beds, and we need sheets, and we need everything that a home needs in order to feel stable, in order to feel like a place where I can fall back into and it won't fall apart, that can really hold me in the most chaotic period of my life. So I wouldn't say this usually, in normal times, but right now, most of our needs are actually physical. And I think that this period really taught us about the importance of a physical place, a place that meets our needs, in the way that it's built, in the location that it's at, and what it has inside of it. So we're really focused on that. And I think that's our main goal, like envisioning the dream shelter that we hope we can have after this crisis.
And we hope we can help with that, of course. And if anybody's watching feels inclined, we appreciate all the help. And just as a reminder, our website is lmelem.org, so that's very easy. Let's see what else we have from the audience. We didn't mean to make this very long, you guys, so we're not gonna stay on for much longer. So if you have any more questions you want to ask, please do submit them. Can you give us an example or two of the kind of risky situations that girls that come into Galgal face?
Sure.
You can maybe even mention a story from a few years back that's no longer, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, are you talking about prior to Galgal, what brings girls into Galgal, or
Yeah,
see?
I guess, you know, you said we meet them where they are. Our donors are always, our supporters are always interested in hearing, you know, a specific story is always very impactful. If you have anything in mind, it can also be something that ended up being a success story, something that had a good ending, and we love to hear those. Sorry, New York noise. Yeah, so we'd love to, if you can share with us.
Okay. So I will say just a trigger warning, because the stories of our girls are not easy ones. But I would say, if I look at a wide phenomenon, but also on a specific women that I haven't thought, the main thing that the girls have in common are broken homes, which can be for many reasons, but a lot of them have been very, very hurt inside their homes. It can be physically, it can be sexual abuse many times. And they come to situations in which they would do anything in order to leave the house and to not be dependent on their families and on their homes. But one girl that I have in mind, she was with us for a few years, and coming back and forth and back and forth. And she managed, through the fire, just before the fire, actually, she managed to get into a university, because she wants to go into law studies, and she wants to change the law from within, from anything that has to do with sexual abuse and sexual abuse inside the family. And she has a very strong political agenda. And I think the time in the shelter helped her move from survival mode to starting to dream, to starting to fantasize about the life that she wants to have. And we were so lucky that just before the fire, we managed to make that happen. And she moved into the dorms of the Hebrew University. And yeah, so that's one story.
From a shelter to a university dorms, that's
yeah. And I'm sure amazing. She went back to the shelter, but from the other way around.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why our slogan is off the streets and onto life. That's very much that. And, you know, we always love stories about youth and young people who've attended LM programs and then came back on the other side, or decided that they want to go study social work. And I think it's so telling about what LM gives them. Can you just a little bit say what it is in the shelter that you think helped her? I mean, did you help her prepare for exams, for entry exams, or what was it that?
Yeah, so we helped her with all the technical stuff, you know, connecting her to a social worker, which helped her with the scholarship and to get into the program with all that. But I think more than that, it was just believing in herself. I mean, we saw her amazing potential from day one. And it took some time, but after a few months, and she started to see it in herself. And I think that's the main achievement, the actually being able to imagine a better future for myself, which is something that we don't always see.
Yeah.
So
I think people often think about, oh, what is this person wants to do when they grow up? And what's important to understand is that some of them don't even think they will get to grow up.
Yeah, and even more than that, some of them don't know what it is to want something. I said before that our main goal is to help them connect to themselves and take control over their lives. And it starts with very, very small things. What do you want to eat for lunch today? And that's a question that some of them they don't know how to start to answer, because no one ever asked them that. No one ever looked at their wantings and at their needs as something that's relevant for anything. So we start to practice it with day-to-day things, and it has results.
That's very inspiring. Okay, I'm going to give last call for questions, and then I'm going to ask you one of mine and give people the chance. What are the girls saying about the fire? Are they still talking about it? Are they, do they speak from a place of healing? Did you guys do anything afterwards to kind of, did you do group therapy or something that had to do with the fire specifically?
I feel that we're still processing it. We did a lot of processing in groups and one-on-one. Each of the girls has a counselor that's her personal counselor. So we did all that, but I feel like we're absolutely still processing it, because what a lot of them are saying is that it actually reactivated the trauma. As I said, all of our girls come from homes that fell apart. And having the shelter fall apart when it was the one place that they never imagined it could happen, it really reactivated something deep. And abandonment issues and fears of what will happen with the next place. And how can I know that this one won't be temporary? They talk a lot, and it really reactivated a lot of anxiety. And we're still working on that. We're still processing it. And I think only once we have our actual new shelter that we can fall into, we can start building it again.
But I can imagine it's really helpful that you've been through it together, because they might have abandonment issues and that fear, but at least they kept seeing the same faces throughout the whole period. So they knew that people that were there for them are not disappearing now that this major trauma happened. Okay, I don't think I skipped any of the questions. So we're gonna thank Abigail, and guys, once again, if anybody wants to support, our website is elem.org. You can obviously follow us on social media. We're LM almost everywhere, or LM USA. And we hope to do more of these soon. And Abigail, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. And hopefully we'll get to do it soon again on a happier circumstances.
Absolutely, with some good news.
With some good news. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.